Amazing. Hello?
Mic test.
Can anyone hear me? Good? Okay, awesome.
Mic test.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and joining us for Generative Art Unchained. We only have 25 minutes, so we're just going to go ahead and get to it. My name is Sophia Garcia. I am the founder of ArtX Code, focusing on highlighting and promoting the generative art ecosystem for the last few years. To keep things quick, I am going to go ahead and introduce everyone. We have Erick Calderon, founder and CEO of Artblocks, and the artist behind the Chromie Squiggle. We have Alex Supkay and Stephen McArdle, artist duo Generative Artworks. We have Ty Roberts, former CTO of Universal Music Group and senior strategic advisor at Tidal, and Dr. Louell Sala, co-founder of Fractio. So, really happy to have all of you here, and again, thank you. In the last year, we've heard this term generative art explode, and I really just wanted to break down quickly what is generative art. And so, generative art is this idea of, a set of rules, autonomous systems creating artwork. There are people, though, behind the scenes that have to create these generative systems, a set of rules for these programs to follow. And so when we talk about generative art, especially in the context of art blocks, we have artists writing lines and lines and lines of code to produce a visual output. On the other side of this, we also have the audio, the music side of it, also creating really interesting generative projects where, again, you're writing lines of code to produce it, and it's really exciting. And I tend to refer to it as algorithmic artwork, because when you talk about generative systems, it goes into this idea of, again, following a set of rules. And so you could argue that Islamic tiling also generative artwork. And so today, in today's state, in the current blockchain ecosystem, that when we talk about generative artwork, we're really referring to algorithmic artwork. So with that aside, Erick, as the founder of the seminal generative artwork marketplace, what moved you to build Artblocks?
Sophia, thank you. This lady's responsible for a lot of what you're seeing today, just because she was really early on. If you guys know who Tyler Hobbs is, she has pieces of Tyler Hobbs pre-generative. I mean, it's very impressive, and we're very lucky to have people like Sophia in this space. My inspiration for Artblocks, I think there's a lot of things that came together in my life. I'm a nerd. I like blockchain a lot. I like CryptoPunks a lot. Another, massive props to Larva Labs for kind of making this, I think, entire thing happen and come together. Huge inspiration from Donald Judd, who is an artist that created iterative works without code, just the brain. And there's something about being able to capture an entire body of work where each individual component is ownable and is part of a family, written algorithmically. And so with Artblocks, a lot of the inspiration was bringing together this nerdiness for NFTs, nerdiness for features, and rarities, which we try to keep out of the equation, but it's a lot of fun. My zombies are special to me, and then just creating a platform for other people to create in a way that I thought was missing in this world. So yeah, we're very lucky to have amazing artists on the platform, and it's a dream come true. And yeah, I just can't believe I'm here. Yeah, this is crazy.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. So, Stephen, Alex, as artists on Artblocks, how have NFTs changed your generative art practice and career trajectory over the last year?
Yeah, it's been absolutely insane. First, I want to shout out, all the artists that are in the audience today, like Matto, Jay Wu. There's a bunch out here, so I really appreciate them. But for us, this has been, absolutely insane. We came up on Instagram and trying to explain. I kind of express it as trying to explain generative art to people. There's only 4 images, and we can kind of show 4 outputs of an algorithm, but people will just think, oh, it's just 4. So this is probably just, you took this one, you photoshopped it a little, worked in some 3D program, and then there's another one, right? So what we were able to do with Artblocks is kind of come into a platform that kind of was able to express generative art in a natural form through blockchain. So once we were able to do that, that was able to kind of challenge us in a way that we were able to kind of progress our art. So I like to say there's pre-art blocks generative artworks, and then there's post-art blocks generative artworks, where we've just been trying to iterate as fast as possible with as many different technologies as possible, as much as art blocks like allows us to use. We're always like, oh, what's possible with this platform? So we've just been exploring that.
Yeah, and something else that happened with the rise of NFTs for us was we found a generative artist community. Before the rise of NFTs, we didn't really see that. We were kind of alone in what we were doing. But now, thanks to Erick and Sophia and everyone else involved, all of the artists, we sort of have this home on the Art Blocks Discord where we can all share ideas and go back and forth and push each other to do things that none of us have really done before.
Yeah. The community has always been so small for generative art. And there was a few people on Instagram we came up with, and they're now on the platform like Rev Dan Cat. So really being able to kind of transition into a larger community, and we see so many artists like IXNA, who's out there somewhere probably in the crowd, like all these new artists that we're kind of able to meet and mentor or just talk to about how to transform their art into the NFT and digital space.
Amazing. I mean, we're on time, guys. We're really doing it. We're really worried about this. Ty, with a long-standing career as a music technologist, how have generative systems been applied to music in the past, and what can we expect in the future?
Thanks for having me on the panel. So, generative music, do you guys know where generative music came from? It came from synthesizers. And people put two synthesizers, analog synthesizers together, turned on some settings, and let them run, and they kind of like ran in sine waves. And sometimes good shit came out, and sometimes terrible stuff came out, and they recorded the stuff with good. And that was how generative music was first done. I was lucky to work with Brian Eno. Do you guys know who Brian Eno is? Any guys out there? Talking Heads, David Bowie. And at one time, I was young guys like these guys were, and this was when computers were just getting into the world. And I got invited into the recording process in studio to work with David Bowie and Brian Eno. So I was in the studio working on generative music albums. And so how did next generation generative music go? The first was you need lyrics and words. So we built a lyric generator. David would enter his ideas into this thing and would randomize the words and would come up with like upside down purple fruitcake. Sounds like a Beck song, actually. And the reality is he would then take the thing, he would go into the studio, Brian would hand the musicians different instruments, not even the ones that they were playing on, and he would say, here's the words, here's the idea, play something. And they would actually generate the recordings in real time. And from that, we were able to then build tools. And so if you guys want to check that out, you can go to my LinkedIn page for Ty Roberts, and you can see a video where David uses these things. And what's happened now, if we kind of fast forward, is it's all about collaboration and generation. So I'm working on a bunch of projects right now with some major artists who are going to look to collaborate with digital artists. So if some of you guys are digital artists, which I know there's a few up here, hit me up because they're looking to basically create interactive music and interactive art. So that's a little bit on the history of it. If you want to know more, hit me up or see me after the panel.
Amazing. So David Bowie's like OG generative artist. So fun tidbit.
I'm David Bowie's computer guy.
Yeah, there we go.
I fixed his email too.
Thank you, Ty. Dr. Louell, you're coming at this from a different angle. So at Fractio, you're trying to bring no-code tools to make generative systems available for traditional artists. What do you hope to accomplish by bridging traditional art techniques with these technical tools?
So that's actually an interesting question. One of the things that makes that really made me like the NFT space was the fact that you can actually add so many things in it. Mm-hmm. So at Fractio, we call it like, what if you're able to combine your left brain with your right brain? Mm-hmm. So for example, if your right brain is more technical, more objective, and then you're combining it now with your with your left brain, which is more artistic, more abstract reasoning. So if you're able to combine that, just imagine the things that you could actually accomplish. So with regards to your question about like how do we, what are the things that we do to encourage people, especially from the Web 2 space, we actually have a lot of meetup groups right now. Especially, I'm holding a lot of meetup groups, and some of the things that we are actually meetup here in New York. But right now it's mostly online, so anyone wherever you are in the world, you can actually join us. And one of the things that what's really interesting is that we were able to, what we do is we actually teach everybody, all artists specifically from the Web2 space, or even if you have no experience in drafting and creating and all that, using your techniques, right, your computer. What you can do is actually, we introduce the concept of MetaMask, we all those seminars and lectures just to onboard those artists. So it's actually a fascinating world right now.
Awesome. I mean, I think, part of the title of this, Generative Art Unchained, this idea of the blockchain and NFTs actually allowing generative art to live in its native space. And so I think beforehand, we had all these artists before us that would have to use, pen plotters, or beforehand, I would work with artists, and we would be in the studio and decide which piece we're going to print, and then we'd have printouts of the code. And now, thanks to art blocks, we have this idea of on-chain generative art, where the actual code itself, the actual performance of it is what you're able to acquire. And I think that is the coolest thing ever from like a nerdy generative art, take. But I also wanted to point how, if you haven't read Tyler Hobbs's essay, this idea of short form versus long form generative art, you guys touched on it without saying it, but can you kind of go more into this idea of, if anyone wants to kind of explain the difference between long form and short form generative art?
Yeah, sure. So, short form is kind of what we were doing on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I have 4 slots for 4 different pictures. I have this algorithm that, 20% of the time it puts out something that's not great. Then 40% it's like, okay, that's okay. And then 5% of the time it's like, wow, this is like this amazing output that I love seeing. So what do? I refresh a bunch of times, curate my pieces, and then pick the best 4, and we put those on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So what Art Blocks changed was we have a set of 1,000 pieces, and a couple of our projects like Empyrean, Enchiridion, Democracy, these are sets of 500, 1,000 even. So the last thing we want to do is, we have those, that 20% that's not very good, showing up in that overall set, because we want the whole set to feel cohesive. We want it to feel like if that was displayed in a gallery space together, people would appreciate every single piece there and walk through and spend the time. So that's kind of changed the way we've looked at our code. So it's a lot of trying to tailor that algorithm and tame randomness. So it's kind of changed how we view what we do. Now our job is really controlling randomness versus curating randomness.
Yeah. I mean, I have to agree. It's really cool to see. Also now this new shift from artists having to post on Instagram in order for their artwork to be seen, and kind of hope that maybe someone will commission them for something, to now being able to mint their work, and people can come in and be like, oh my God, I love that. And instead of just throwing it a like, they can kind of put their money where their mouth is and just buy it and say, I love this. I want to add this to my digital art collection. So it's amazing. Dr. Louell, so can you talk about what your, Fractio, what is your goal? What will traditional artists be able to do on your platform? So
actually, we're hoping to open up this whole new economy. When we talk about the Web2 space, there's just all this concept about influencers, right? The creator economy. We want to actually do the same in the Web3 space. So because just imagine if you can integrate data in your artwork. So any data for that matter, it could include pharmaceutical data, or the air, the weather data, any type of data. But right now we're actually using the Chainlink oracles or oracles in general. But theoretically, you can use any type of data as long as you have an API. You can use that data to actually create your artwork, to change or to move. So that's really, I think, the fascinating thing, and I know it will open up a whole new economy in terms of the the influencer, that section.
Okay, great. I mean, I'm trying to think, because now we have all this extra time, which is amazing. Okay, if you guys have, I don't know if anyone in this audience has no idea what generative art is, but if you wanted to tell someone, very, in your words, what is it to you? And I'll let everyone kind of answer this.
Well, man, that's a pretty special question. So generative art has existed since the 60s. I believe Ann Spalter is in the audience.
Yes, Ann Spalter.
And someone that's been collecting generative art, for decades. This isn't new. Generative art has existed for a really long time. And to see generative art what has happened today, I think Anne actually coined, for me at least, the phrase "new generative art" as like this kind of movement. Generative art's been around forever, so this is just like a new generation of it. But the idea that somebody could create a rule set started with Fortran and COBOL and like really old programming languages, and has evolved to what we see today, which is incredibly complex systems with sound and all sorts of API inputs. But it's really just somebody sculpting code to create something that will surprise not just you, but the artists themselves. And the idea of being able to curate, whether now you don't get, we've stripped the ability for y'all to curate. I think it's created a lot of the excitement. But yeah, it's generative art. It's just the idea of shaping something that will then surprise you and give you little treats of
I have to
visual
say,
outputs.
the first time I minted on art blocks, that concept, I was like, I don't get to pick which artwork I want. Like, I was actually kind of mad. I was like, what? But now I understand the magic of it, and it's been a really beautiful experience. Ty, if you want to kind of touch on what generative art is to you, especially in the music side.
Yeah, for me, I think the main thing is the art is alive. Basically, we had fixed art. Okay, so photography is probably the best example. You take a picture, it's the picture, and why people can perturb it or whatever, it's pretty much what it is. This is something completely different, where every time you look at it, it could be different. It could have been different before it was made, so it is a fixed thing, but it was different while you were watching it create, so that's more like cooking. You put the ingredients together, and it's baking in the oven, and at the end, you eat it, and it's a cake. So I feel like that's the biggest thing about this, which is we're able to make things now that live on and have their own life. And then as well, the outside world can contribute to the artistic process. Not all of these will do this, but the ones that are involving the community or the fans and their creative input into this, it's possible to integrate pieces of generative art into other pieces of art. So you're going to see mashups in the future of these things. And there's just so many wonderful possibilities. And what's great about it is there's like an underlying economic model, which, because of the decentralized nature of the blockchain, brings a more direct connection between the artist and the fan without somebody in the middle taking all the money necessarily. It's really a great thing. And I think that's probably why everyone's here and excited about this area.
No, absolutely. I'm excited to see how audio kind of takes off from here, music. We've seen some projects, especially on art blocks, play around with audio and visual. Audio visuals is super, super exciting. So shout out to Aaron Penne and Beretta for their last project, because that was really beautiful, this meditative experience, yeah.
Everything goes better with sound,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because sound is the channel you communicate emotion through.
Yeah.
Like, you can look at the art, but when you hear the sound, you get heroism, okay? It connects right to you. Like, that might be in the art, but if you have a little bit of it in the art and a lot of it in the music, you go, that's a heroic piece of art. Yeah. And so, that is really important. Music brings with it a lot of challenges with licensing and the complexity of the music business. So it's a challenge area, which is best if you create original works and you own all the rights, and then you can do whatever you want. It's harder if you're trying to use popular works, and it's harder if you're trying to use popular songs. And so that's a bit of a challenge, and hopefully that'll become easier. And we'll be able to allow people to make new things. Generative art, it would be great to get a generative version of popular albums that are out there with visuals and everything like that. But to do that, it's going to be licensing, be a little complicated. So let's do original new things. Let's empower new artists right now. Let them show the way, and we can always go back to the past and redo it.
Amazing. So I know we kind of already discussed with you guys what is generative art, but I think for this new generation maybe of students, I guess Gen Z, and does the generation before them have a name yet? But they're growing up learning how to code, and so what are your hopes, I guess, for this new generation of artists and engineers in all of this?
Yeah. One thing I think is really exciting in the future, we're talking about music, we're talking about visuals. The combination of those two, in my mind, really creates these generative experiences. You can sit, like I was talking, Instagram's just these pictures, but if you, with the Art Blocks platform, can these new artists that are coming up can go and create an experience. I load into essentially a game, and I can walk through, and everything's unique, one of X to me. And there's music, and it's it could be a dreamlight state. It could be a very fun game to play. It could be meditative. So there's just so much I want to see there, and I think the next generation is really going to explore that.
I think at this point, kids grow up on their phones and iPads and computers, so the technology just makes sense to them. And I think generative art having sort of that technical background and maybe even some software engineering background will make visual art much more accessible to a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't have opportunities to create visual art.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already starting to see some of these youngins come out. So I don't know if Erin Beasley's here, but Erin, shout out to you, 14-year-old girl, absolutely killing it in the generative art space, beloved member of the community, and so it's really, really cool to see. Dr. Louell, in your, please, like, in your field, please, like, you know.
So I look at it differently. I think that, you know, there's always evolution with words, for example. So not just words, but right now we know there's a convergence, right, with not just with technology, but with all the different sciences and even art. So I look at it in the fact that we're always pushing boundaries of technology, of art, of science, of everything technically. And that's part of, you know, our humanity, right? That's part of us. And I think that as we grow to this new, you know, the NFTs, this whole new digital economy, we are really gonna see a lot of artists, not just, you know, having their ownership, so to speak, but also creating this really incredible works of art. Like I said, you know, in Fracture, for example, if you're able to really combine your technical side with your artistic side, just imagine, you know, what you could just accomplish. You know, and the thing is, it's not just limited. I know a few hours ago, somebody was talking that this world is actually changing to become more global. So there's no more centers, right? So it's fascinating to see a whole new global experience that is experienced not just in, for example, New York or in, you know, in Dubai for that matter, but all over the world. So it's really fascinating to actually see that grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this space now, and the way we're all communicating with each other, the collector experience is also completely different. So now you can collect your artwork, and instead of hoping that people come to your house so that you can show it off, you can actually just post a link of your like digital gallery on Twitter and be like, hey, check out my collection, and people absolutely love it. So I think this idea of not only a global economy, but, you know, just global art community, and really taking down a lot of the barriers. And, you know, early on, I think a lot of collectors who maybe came in for money purposes, we won't talk about that, but now are here for the art. They stay for the art.
Came for the flip, stayed for the art.
I come for
it's
the
like
flip,
our
stay for
favorite
the art.
name on our Discord for sure.
And it's been really cool to see that. And you know, I think sometimes the NFTs get a bad rep from people who don't fully understand the space, but if it's having more people dive into art history and trying to understand what came before them, then I think it's actually doing its job in terms of bringing this culture together and strengthening our culture at a global level.
I mean, I'll just say this real quick. Like at the root here, we're proving ownership of a digital asset for the first time in history, and I sometimes feel like that's not said often enough. Like, I know there were NFTs officially before CryptoPunks, but CryptoPunks for me was the first time that I could prove the ownership of a digital asset. And not only is that a revolution that we're experiencing, but it's an evolution in art. And it shouldn't sideline types of art that are not necessarily compatible with what we're experiencing, but we should all embrace this as like a massive evolution in the world of art and in the way that we experience, share, create art. And this is very much the beginning of that. And I think we have a lot of exciting stuff to come, you know, with that regard.
Yeah.
When you talk to people in traditional museums, they're excited about this. For the first time, there could be a piece of art that's on the wall that when you go this month and see it, and you go back like the next month, it's different. It doesn't generally happen to them.
Yeah.
So the reality is that's cool because people will keep coming back. So even in the physical world, something that changes, the fact that it responds to the world or the light or what's happening in the environment, the art can be influenced by the world. And that's a huge component that it could influence the artist before, who could transmit that to the piece, but they kind of stopped there. It could then only be a reflection of the world. So now it can be influenced by the world.
Yeah, I think.
I also think there's something really natural, you know, about the art we're creating here. You know, you walk outside, and this is New York City, so there's not many, but trees, you know, every tree is unique. Central Park's maybe a little better. So, like, we're used to understanding, you know, that objects, like people, are unique. And so when you can own a piece of art that is unique to you, I feel like there's a type of connection there. And you feel connected to your piece because you're the one that minted it, for example. And like I own so many art pieces that I've never sold a single one because I'm like, I got them. They all have a story behind them, and they all have a visual that represents that moment. So I think that's what makes generative art really exciting.
My cat's starting to get jealous. That's what's happening. I'm going to have a connection with my NFT.
I think we're really excited to kind of see now this connection between the physical and the digital spaces, which I self-plug. We're having an event in Miami during Art Basel, Artix Code, co-hosted by Art Blocks, where we will have an amazing exhibition and auction of generative art kind of across the space. A lot of art blocks, a lot of non-art blocks work. So, can't wait to see you guys there. Follow us for more info. But thank you guys. We're at time now. But thank you all for the discussion, and thank you all for being here. And it's been amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, everybody.